Today's video is a straightforward one. It's about the move Charge and the charged mechanic. So first, let's establish what Charge actually does. When a Pokemon uses the move Charge, it charges up and enters a charged state. It then causes the next electric type attack used by that Pokemon to deal double damage. Generation 4 buffed Charge that it would also raise the user's special defense by 1 stage when used. Generation 9 buffed Charge again to store the charged state and let it persist until a damaging electric type move is attempted to be used. Previously, if you entered the charged state, you had to immediately use a damaging electric type move next turn or forfeit the extra damage entirely. Notice my wording there, by the way. Attempted to be used. The charge is still consumed even if the user fails to act because of things like sleep, freeze, or flinch. Selecting a move and failing to act will consume charge. At its core, Charge is a 2-turn sequence. The first turn, you do no damage. Second turn, double damage. Why wouldn't I just use the electric move twice? That's also double damage. I'd say that attacking twice is usually better in practice. Let's say I'm using an Alolan Raichu. It knows Charge, Thunderbolt, Charge Beam, and Psychic. Why would I not click Thunderbolt twice? Each instance of Thunderbolt is basically guaranteed damage, a 10% chance to paralyze, and a chance to crit. If I use Charge Beam twice, it's 2 instances of damage, 2 chances to crit, and 2 70% chances to raise special attack. That first example is assuming my opponent is just sitting there asleep, letting me attack for free. A real opponent isn't going to sit there, see us charge, and not send in the electric immunity or a Blissey to eat any special coverage move we may have. This would be another situation where attacking twice would have been nice, because at least we throw out the electric move first and we're free to use a different move the next turn. Maybe we paralyze Blissey as it comes in to tank the Thunderbolt. When we switch to our Blissey check, if paralysis triggers and prevents it from acting to heal or seismic toss, we got a free switch and a free extra attack. This becomes more severe when you consider the other opportunity costs. Pokemon only have 4 move slots. To use Charge, you must dedicate 1 slot to Charge itself and at least 1 slot for an electric attack. You're dedicating half your moveset for a 1 combo interaction. That's an unusually high slot investment in a system where flexibility, coverage, and utility are constantly competing for space. When compared to traditional setup moves, the gap widens further. Moves like Nasty Plot, Calm Mind, Swords Dance, and Bulk Up provide a more persistent value. They improve multiple attacks of different types, scale over time, and can become win conditions because they usually aren't consumed by using your moves. To be generous about other niche cases, a potential argument could be that Charge helps electric-type mixed attackers by boosting both physical and special electric attacks. In theory, this compresses offensive setup on both sides into a single move. Yet again, in practice, you could just use Workup instead or attack twice. This would also undermine the purpose of mixed attackers. Mixed attackers exist to maximize coverage diversity, forcing the opponent to respect threats on both sides of the defensive spectrum. Charge here encourages overcommitment to electric damage, consuming slots that would otherwise support coverage. It's also important to compare Charge to other 2-turn move mechanics that have existed as early as Generation 1. Moves like Skull Bash, Razor Wind, Sky Attack, Solar Beam, Dig, Fly, Dive, and Phantom Force all sacrifice tempo for delayed payoff. Most of these moves are already considered largely niche or unviable, yet structurally, they are still better supported than Charge. They compress setup and payoff into a single move slot. Some of them synergize with Power Herb, which skips the charging turn entirely to become an immediate threat, like Geomancy Xerneas. Some Pokemon using Power Up can synergize with item consumption abilities like Unburden or moves like Acrobatics. Some provide positional value by evading attacks and/or stalling for residual chip damage on the enemy or healing on themselves. Consider a Trevenant holding Leftover using Phantom Force in conjunction with Will-O-Wisp, Leech Seed, and Hornleech to cripple, wear down, stall, and stay healthy in the face of an opponent. Others gain archetype acceleration like Solar Beam, becoming a 1-turn attack in harsh sunlight. Charge has none of these advantages. Now let's look at Electric Terrain, which is designed to boost electric damage in a completely different way. Electric Terrain increases electric move power by 30% for Pokemon interacting with the terrain. Before being nerfed, this terrain used to give a 50% increase to applicable electric type moves. Over a 4-turn window, spamming Thunderbolt with Electric Terrain deals 1.3 times base damage each turn, for a total of 5.2 times base damage. 2 cycles of charge followed by Thunderbolt over the same 4 turns deals a total of 4 times base damage. Terrain wins by 30% in raw output, and Electric Terrain is a field effect, so it's team-wide, lasts multiple turns, prevents sleep, enables abilities and items, and preserves full move flexibility. I want to be clear, it's the move charge itself and Pokemon's take on the mechanic that is terrible. Charge mechanics in games and media are not inherently flawed. Super Smash Bros. Has plenty of moves that require charging to perform, usually rewarding the player with big damage if landed. Some charge moves are stored and allow the player to be more threatening because they have the charge stored. Sometimes just the threat of starting to charge up these moves will force the opponent to have to react, approach, interrupt, or otherwise do anything to address the threat. If you want to stick to turn-based RPGs, try to compare it to how other RPG systems implement tempo sacrifices for damage boosts. In Persona and Shin Megami Tensei, charge mechanics exist too. The exact numbers and availability of these moves change from game to game, but in the more recent and popular entries, the charge mechanics are worth using if you can get them. Charge and Concentrate are moves that give the user a charge state for physical type attacks and magical type attacks respectively. Once you are in the charge state, the next attack will usually do more than double damage. Like I said, the numbers change depending on which game, but charge is good in games where the multiplier is more than 2. In the case of Persona 5 and Shin Megami Tensei 4, the multiplier for charge and concentrate are around 2.5 times the damage. In other words, the damage is more than just attacking twice. This charge state usually doesn't go away until you successfully use a move. Whether you hit or miss doesn't matter because the energy was channeled. If you are afflicted by a status that prevents you from acting or performing the attack, you do not consume the charge because you didn't channel the energy, so you couldn't have wasted it. They apply broadly to entire damage classes, not a single element. Just as importantly, those systems operate with larger move lists, typically 8 to 10 slots for moves, lowering the opportunity cost of dedicating space to that move. The surrounding system supports the design. Pokemon's version lacks that support, which makes the same concept feel redundant instead of strategic. Competitive usage reflects these structural issues. Charge is largely absent from top electric attackers in tournament level play. The most notable example, at least that I could find, is Ampharos. It is one of the only Pokemon I could find in any format of singles or doubles that actually runs charge. Bear with me, I had to dig for this, but when you look up Ampharos on Pikalytics and check out the popular moves and teammates for Ampharos, it's clear that this is a super obscure strategy trying to make Ampharos bulky while preserving the threat of damage. Ampharos can run charge alongside defensive tools like Cotton Guard and Rest. Cotton Guard gives a +3 to defense, and charge is the only way for Ampharos to boost its special defense. It's boosting up to support its team with options like Electro Web, and it survives long enough to make use of boosted electric support attacks. This is not evidence that charge is strong. It demonstrates that in the absence of better setup options, charge can act as conditional padding. It is an exception that reinforces the broader pattern because Ampharos would absolutely be using Calm Mind over charge here if it had access to Calm Mind. Historically, charge did have actual relevance in the side content like Pokemon Contest or Pokestar Studios. Side content in general was a great place where moves in Pokemon had a place to be evaluated outside pure battle efficiency. For example, in Pokemon Contest, there were move combinations that would earn you extra points when used together. They were often sequences that worked well for the user in real battles like Lock-On plus Zap Cannon or Hail plus Blizzard. Using charge followed by a damaging electric type attack was one of those contest combos. Unfortunately, use in those contexts are largely gone or deprioritized. Modern Pokemon increasingly centers around battles and catching. You have the main game's battles and catching, max raids, terra raids, competitive battling, VGC. Contests and other side content that could make use of these moves are gone. At the same time, they are simultaneously cutting moves, Pokemon, and mechanics. In this environment, it's more important than ever for the remaining moves and tools to justify their existence inside the games, especially when other more useful support or coverage moves have been removed like aromatherapy or signal beam. Legacy is not enough. Flavor is not enough. The last semblance of relevance for Charge are now Bellibolt and Kilowattrel. It isn't because these Pokemon actually use Charge, it's because they each have an ability that can automatically trigger a charged state. Even then, these abilities are not a must-have on these Pokemon, and they frequently enough use their other abilities. If Charge is going to remain part of modern Pokemon, it needs substantial changes, and I'm going to pull those changes from other Charge mechanics. First, change the multiplier to 2.5 times damage, or anything more than just double. I think that this is completely fair, especially when you consider that Charge only works on electric type moves, a single type out of 18. Considering that a game like Persona 5 allows you to set up concentration for a 2.5 times multiplier on any magic attack, and you could then follow up with a fire, ice, electric, wind, psychic, nuclear, bless, curse, or almighty attack, this is perfectly reasonable to at least test. Second, don't consume the charge state until the user actually attacks. If they are asleep, paralyzed, infatuated, flinched, frozen, or whatever else, then they aren't acting. Wait until they meaningfully attack to consume and use the charge. Treat it like how we treated gems in Generation 5, where those too were not consumed until the Pokemon could actually move to consume them. The only difference here would be that the charge state would be consumed by missing entirely, hitting a substitute, hitting a type immunity, or hitting an ability. I believe that this would be more logical, intuitive, and fair. As for the +1 special defense increase, it could stay or go. I'd be more inclined to get rid of it to justify Charge being a meaningful threat, and let some other move, new or otherwise, be a special defense boosting move. Right now, Charge is asking the player to pay too high of a price to invest in a loss. For a player to spend turns, slots, and flexibility for a payoff that other mechanics already provide more efficiently. In a battle system where tempo, opportunity cost, and synergy define success, that trade simply does not hold up. At this point, maybe a 3 times damage multiplier on Charge could be perfectly fair. What are your thoughts? Should Charge be buffed? Should Charge be removed? Should Charge state just be on abilities? Should it be expanded to non-electric types? Should the mechanic be scrapped entirely? I want to know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you some other time. Bye!